What's going on, NFL fans? Welcome back to the J All Day channel. In today's episode, I have a great one for you guys. We're going to break down the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. I'm doing a series where I'm breaking down every single week one NFL game for you guys. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want more NFL content. In these games, I'm going to go over my final predictions. I'm going to preview the actual game. I'm going to talk about these teams' offseason, their free agent signings, their draft picks, and who I ultimately think is going to win this game. All right, guys, stick around for the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Atlanta Falcons is a tale of two teams who now have new quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins for the Atlanta Falcons and Russell Wilson for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Which one of these quarterbacks is going to integrate into this offense better? We'll see a lot in week one. Currently, right now, Atlanta is the favorite, -3 points. Usually, if you're the home team and the game's about even, you get about 3 points. So Vegas is thinking this game is about even, and I definitely agree with that sentiment. This should be a really fun game to watch. Last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers' biggest strength was definitely that pass rush. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, man, that is the best pass rush duo in the NFL by far, in my opinion. They're incredibly talented. Highsmith had over a 90 PFF rating last year. They were unbelievable. Their biggest weakness was that offensive line. It's still pretty terrible, in my opinion, and they're going to probably have at least two rookies starting on that offensive line with Troy Fontenot and Zach Frazier from West Virginia, the center. So we'll have to see how that kind of plays out as the season goes along. You never know what you're going to get with these rookies. The Atlanta Falcons' biggest strength was that rush defense. They ranked second only behind the Miami Dolphins. They were incredible at stopping the run last year. But for them, their biggest weakness obviously was that quarterback position with Desmond Ridder. They were really bad at the quarterback position last year. That's why they went out and paid Kirk Cousins all that money, and they drafted Michael Penix Jr., which kind of blew a lot of people's minds, including myself. Next, I want to talk about these teams off season. We'll go over their draft picks and free agents, who they signed in free agency and who they let walk. Let's do it. All right, my fellow NFL fans, we're going to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers draft class of this year. An amazing class, in my opinion. Round one, they took one of my favorite offensive linemen in this entire draft, Troy Fontenot. Man, he's a guard, I think, at the NFL level, but he can honestly play all 5 positions on the offensive line, guys. 91 overall grade, 15 overall rank. To get him at number 20 is just great value, especially because the Steelers' offensive line is a dumpster fire, right? They let center Mason Cole walk in free agency, so he could either play guard or possibly center. But I think he's probably going to more likely play guard in the NFL level, especially because in the second round, they drafted one of the best centers in this entire draft class, Zach Frazier, 6'3", 313 pounds from West Virginia, 80 grade, 63 overall rank in the second round. Another really solid pick, man. If you have Fontenot at left or right guard and Zach Frazier at center, yes, this year there's going to be a little bit of growing pains, right? 2 players, rookies on this offensive line protecting Russell Wilson. It's not the best scenario, especially a team that really wants to run the ball. And Troy Fontenot is a lot better of a pass blocker than he is a run blocker. But these two are really good players. To get these kind of offensive linemen in the first 2 picks is great. And then I think this guy might be one of the steals of the draft. In the third round, J.J. McCarthy's number 1 target at Michigan, the national champions, Roman Wilson. He's going to be fixed in the slot, in my opinion. And behind their number 1 receiver, George Pickens, they don't have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position because they let Deontay Johnson, I think he got traded to the Panthers. I think it was a trade. 5'11", 185 pounds, but he's got super solid hands. He ran a 4.3940, so he's got really good speed. He can play anywhere, man. He's a very talented player. The Pittsburgh Steelers also signed Van Jefferson from the Rams and Quez Watkins from the Eagles, who wasn't very productive with the Birds. He's not that good of a player. I think Roman Wilson can be better than both of those guys and get a lot of playing this season for the Steelers. And then they got an absolute steal at the bottom of the third round in the compensatory picks. Peyton Wilson, right? He's probably a top 25, top 35 talent, but apparently he doesn't have an ACL in one of his knees, and that kind of scared a lot of NFL teams. There's some injury history with him, 6'4", 233. And if you watch the tape, he kind of high tackles a little bit too. I think he needs to fix that up in the NFL, because if you try to tackle guys like Derrick Henry by the shoulders, you're going to get rocked and mowed over, man. But I do like Peyton Wilson. He's a great outside linebacker. He can blitz the quarterback. He can drop back into coverage. He's a very versatile guy. And then they went offensive guard again with McCormick from South Dakota State in the 4th round. Then they went D-tackle and cornerback with their last 2 6th-round picks, guys. All right, now let's move on to the offseason, right? They let Mason Rudolph walk. Deontay Johnson got traded. Mason Cole is gone as well. And here are the additions. Patrick McQueen is an absolute beast. He had a career year after his 5th-year option got declined by the Ravens. He went out and balled out and got paid. 133 tackles, 3.5 sacks. The question mark with him is he played aside Roquan Smith, who's one of the best linebackers in the National Football League. Did that help him out a little bit? He's going to be the guy in Pittsburgh for the linebacking crew. He's not even 25 yet. PFF ranked him as the 20th best free agent in this class. Very solid. And they also signed Quez Watkins, 26-year-old wide receiver from the Philadelphia Eagles. They weren't super busy in free agency. The Steelers tend to never be super busy. And they also traded quarterback, 1st-round pick Kenny Pickett to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't love that, man. And the reason why I don't love that is because that offensive line was trash last year. So how are you going to trade your 2022 1st-round pick, right, when your offensive line can't block anybody, man? He was running for his life every time he dropped back, and he's looked pretty good in camp with the Birds so far, so I don't know. And he wasn't too happy when Russell Wilson got signed. I mean, how could you be? They didn't really give you a chance. He didn't have a ton of weapons at wide receiver either, and it was a team that ran the ball a lot, and then when they did pass, he was getting the shit pounded out of him, so I don't necessarily love that. They also brought in Justin Fields with the trade too. So we'll see how the Justin Fields, Russell Wilson kind of quarterback situation plays out. Because what happens if the first 4 weeks Russell Wilson looks like dog shit? Then the Steelers fans in that crazy black and yellow stadium are calling out Justin Fields' name. It could create a kind of murky situation, especially for a team that made the playoffs last year by the skin of their teeth, ended up losing to Buffalo, but they have a good foundation. Very solid defense. TJ Watt and Highsmith is very, 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 very talented group, right? Okay, now let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons. Let's talk about one of the wildest drafts in Falcons history. A lot of people thought they were going to go edge defender, someone like Dallas Turner or something like that, but they ended up picking Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. I think he was a little unheralded in the draft process. He's a really good player, throws a super sexy deep ball. He's that lefty, got a really, really good arm, man. But he had good receivers with Rome Odunze in Washington. 85 overall grade. I don't know if he's worth the number 8 pick, especially when you're paying Kirk Cousins all that cabbage, guys. But I like that pick. I don't love it. And then the next pick, they went Rook Aurora from Clemson, the D tackle. They added Braylon Trice, another edge defender that I really like too from Washington. 2 Washington guys got drafted by Atlanta. I don't love the Rook Aurora pick. I mean, it's an okay pick, 6'4", 294. He's a good player. With Grady Jarrett is coming off that torn ACL, and the other guys are over 30, so I understand why they want to go D-tackle. They need to get a little younger in that room for sure. Braylon Trice is a beast, man. He's got a high motor guy, high volume. He's strong, got good swim moves, high effort type of player, 6'4", 245. I like that pick. Then they went another D-tackle on Brandon Dorlus, who fell a little bit farther than I thought. I thought he was going to be a late 2nd round, early 3rd round guy. Fell to them in the early parts of the 4th round. 77 overall grade, and the other D-tackle 79 in the 2nd round. So you're pretty much getting the same player 2 rounds later. I mean, they want to get younger at D-tackle, so they really drafted hard on the D-line. Then another draft pick I liked. A lot of people hated the Falcons draft, but I think when we look 2, 3, 4 years down the road, it's going to be a lot better than people think. J.D. Bertrand was the captain I think the past 2 seasons at Notre Dame led the team in tackles. 39 grade is BS. He's a way better player than that. You'll see this year. I promise you that, Falcons fans. I like J.D. Perchan. Then they went Jace McClellan, the running back from Alabama. I like that pick. And then Casey Washington and then D tackle Zion Luge. They went hard on D tackle, man. They didn't have a ton of draft picks. They had 8 draft picks. 3 of them were D tackles, another edge. They also went running back, wide receiver, and quarterback. Decent draft. I think it's a lot better than people are saying because of that insane Michael Penix Jr. pick. But the defenders they got, Braylon Trice, Brandon Dorlas, I think they're really good players. We'll see about Rook Aurora. I think that might have been an overdraft there, especially with the 3rd pick in the 2nd round. Now, let's move on to free agents. Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell are still free agents, according to PFF. Matt Collins and Okudah moved on. They brought in Charlie Warner, a tight end, not a great player. Darnell Mooney, another wide receiver, ranked 61 in the offseason. And Kirk Cousins, man, he's coming off that ACL injury, so we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, he's one of the hardest workers ever. If you watch that documentary, I think it's on Netflix, it's insane. His work ethic is unbelievable, man. He's going to do everything he can to get back on the field 100%. I like Kirk Cousins. He's going to be able to work with Pitts and Bijan Robinson and London, I think, very, very well. If you're still with us, you are a true NFLG. And if you want to get all these kind of breakdowns and updates for each and every one of Week 1 games, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Next for you guys, I'm going to break down the X's and O's a little bit and see what teams have advantages where. Take a look at the depth charts right now. We'll have to see. These depth charts are going to evolve as time goes on, as people get cut and rookies step up in camp. So this is kind of just an exercise. These depth charts are not locked in by any stretch of the imagination, but I just want to take a look at the offenses and the defense. First, we're going to take a look at Atlanta's offense versus the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, guys. Highsmith and Watt are the studs. 290 outside linebackers in this 3-4 scheme. We got Holcomb and Queen in the middle. They got a solid D line too with Hayward and Benton. The cornerbacks could use a little bit of an upgrade in my opinion, but the Steelers are so good at rushing the passer, you can kind of not have the best corners and kind of get away with it because Highsmith and Watt are absolute animals. If we take a look real quick at the offense, we got Drake London on the outside, Darrell Mooney on the other outside, and then Moore in the slot. Pitts at tight end and Bijan Robinson at halfback. Kirk Cousins playing the quarterback position. Jake Matthews, the left tackle, is probably the best offensive lineman of this bunch. But the center and guards, Dahlman and Lindstrom, both very, very, very talented offensive linemen. The Atlanta Falcons offensive line was one of the highest rated offensive lines in football last year. And you can see why. Only one guy with under a 71 PFF grade. Really good offensive line. And if you give Kirk Cousins time, he could pick you apart. So if Highsmith and Watt can't get to the quarterback and you let Drake London against these cornerbacks against the Steelers, they could have a huge advantage there, right? And the linebackers, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to cover Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson out of the flat. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I think the Atlanta Falcons can, score a little bit of points against this really, really good Steelers defense, right? I think this game is going to be won and lost in the trenches, right? Can Jake Matthews and McGarry stop Highsmith and Watt from getting to Kirk Cousins, right? That's going to determine, I think, really how this game plays out. Because I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers putting up a ton of points. All right, real quick, let's go over the offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We got Harris at the running back position, Wilson at the quarterback positions. We got Pickens and Jefferson on the outside and Watkins in the slot. Man, this offensive line is very, very suspect. Right tackle Fautano is probably going to be penciled in there, the rookie. Nate Herbig is penciled in at center right now. I look for Zach Frazier to possibly play center, and then maybe we move Herbig to one of these corner spots. It's crazy that Sayamalu was the best offensive lineman for this group last year, and he did not have the best year ever, man. His pass block grade, 66.4. I mean, he's not a great pass blocker, but this team has a new offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, the former coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and he's going to want to run the football, right? And him being the offensive coordinator for this team is probably going to help game plan a little bit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I look for them to run the ball a lot, use play action, because we know Russell Wilson loves play action. He loves to get out of the pocket, launch the ball down the field. I think that's going to be their game plan. Run the ball 25 to 30 times, throw in some play action there, and try to get some deep balls and some points to Pickens off the play action play. All right, now let's take a look at this Atlanta Falcons defense, guys. Run defense was excellent last year. Bates, the safety, the free safety, the second-ranked safety in the NFL. Very, very, very good player. We got Terrell and Phillips the third on the outside. The D-line for the Falcons is very, very solid. And then you're going to throw in all these rookies, man. Ruka Ruarua and Braylon Trice. We don't know how they're going to mix into this group, but they're definitely going to get some playing time. I look for them to kind of sub out a lot, keep a lot of fresh bodies on there with these young depth pieces, man. I like the Falcons' defense here. I don't love their defense. The secondary is okay. The linebackers are okay. But the D-line is going to be what keeps them in games. And I think they just match up very well with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who want to run the ball. If the Pittsburgh Steelers have trouble running the ball against the Atlanta Falcons, which I think they might, especially with all these new pieces with Pittsburgh and the offensive coordinator, there's going to be some growing pains, a lot of moving parts with this offense, bringing in Russell Wilson, a new offensive coordinator. I think they might struggle a little bit, especially because their offensive line is pretty trash, in my opinion. So I think the Atlanta Falcons defense is going to show up and hold them to under 20 points. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Atlanta Falcons. Who do I ultimately think wins this game? Honestly, I think it's going to be a pretty sloppy game. We got a new offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that struggled to pass the ball all year. And then on the opposite side, the Atlanta Falcons have a whole new crew, new head coach, Raheem Morris, new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson from the LA Rams, and Jimmy Lake, a new defensive coordinator who is also in the Rams organization. So a lot of moving parts for both of these teams, right? We're going to see a lot of pre-snap motion with these Atlanta Falcons guys trying to pick up whether the defense is in zone or man-to-man. And we look for the Pittsburgh Steelers who are trying to run the ball down the Falcons' throat. Who ultimately wins this game? I just think the Atlanta Falcons have a little more firepower on offense, and that D-line is going to do what it does, stop the run. So I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have trouble scoring points in this game, right? Unless they take a couple deep shots and can beat them over the top, I think they're going to struggle with the running game. And that's why I think the Atlanta Falcons win a close game, 20-13. Kirk Cousins wins his debut. I think London's going to have a big game. And I actually think Kyle Pitts will have a very, very good game as well. So I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons to defeat the Pittsburgh Steelers at home 20-13. Let me know in the comments below, who do you think is going to win this game? What is your score prediction? And if you like these kind of videos, make sure you do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can get all my week 1 coverage. I'm covering all these games, guys. I'm going to break them down, the X's and O's, the depth charts, predictions. I'm going to do everything for you guys, talk about draft picks. I want you guys to know all you can about these games. So if you're going to make some bets, you know all the information you need to know to make some cash. All right, thanks again for tuning in. Peace.